you're gonna look great. But if you wanna stay in shape, well, you better hit the GymWits.
That's right, man. Tell 'em. Welcome to the GymWits podcast. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, aka Chef Sonic.
And I'm Tony Marinucci, aka Tips with Tony, your registered dietitian.
And we are the GymWits. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you're listeners to the podcast, obviously we don't ask too much of you. But I will ask if you can take literally a minute of your time to go fill out a survey for us. It will really help us
It's
out.
not like one of those super long surveys. It's like literally a minute. It's 4 questions.
Yeah. So anyway, just a few questions. Go to survey.libsyn.com/thegymwits. Again, that's survey.libsyn, LIBSYN.com/thegymwits. Fill out a quick little demographic survey for us. It will be extremely helpful. So again, if you're a listener, we don't ask much, but we are asking this one thing. If you go there, again, survey.libsyn.com, it'll be in the show notes as well. Just fill out your information. It'll take you less than a minute, and you will be doing us a huge favor.
Yes, it will help us with advertisers, and you know that we want to keep
So
the
you're
lights
not supposed
on.
to say that because then someone's going to say, no, I don't want to listen to them do more advertisements. So don't listen to Justin. It's not for advertisers.
Well, we're gonna
we
be
just
honest
need
about it.
demographic information.
Well, I will say, people ask me like how much I get paid to do the podcast, and I laugh, but not to be mean, but like, not for nothing. Help the guys out.
Yes, you guys are getting free content. All we ask is that you fill out some survey information so that it does not help us with advertising. We just like to look at demographic.
And we just like to look at
fun.
demographic information, but we want to keep the lights on, and we want to keep providing content for you guys. So.
Yeah. Well, Tiff, I think I've said this before. If you plan on I know a few people who've like, I want to do a podcast, and they have these visions of making money. And it's like, no, you got to do a podcast because you love what you're doing.
Exactly.
And maybe if you're lucky, at some point after a few years, you can make enough to offset the cost of the actual podcast. And if you're really, really lucky, or you have a great idea, some people get lucky, but it's so minuscule, the amount. And you got to really podcast because you really love sharing the information that you're talking about. Don't get into it because you think you're going to make a quick buck, because unless you're already famous or you already have some backing, it is incredibly hard to do that.
The same thing goes for radio. Like, I didn't know. So like, I'm a co-host on a radio show where I live, and I got the fortunate opportunity. I got asked to be a co-host. And then I was like inquiring about like how would it be to have my own show. He's like, because I work for the station, I don't have to pay, but people pay to have a radio show.
Sure.
Not only do we podcast for free, but when you have a radio show, you're putting money, and it's a lot of money for a half hour. It could be like $500.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yep.
No, so yeah, I guess that was a little mini discussion
Sorry.
on no
Off tangent.
Yeah, no, but it's true. It is something that I commonly hear from people who are getting interested in podcasting, is like how they're going to make money. It's like, you tell me, because I'd be really happy to know how to make money from podcasting.
If anybody listening has some money and wants to back us, I'm just kidding.
No, but no.
Well, the GymWits does have some future goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure, everyone has goals, but
Yeah.
And of course, the big goal is to continue bringing you guys great content on a higher level. So to be able to bring you more content more often, make sure you guys get what you want, be more responsive to questions and faster, be able to reach out to you guys faster, all that good stuff.
Cool. All right. Well, what's been going on with you guys? Anything?
I've been continuing my
continue your diet.
My diet, it's been pretty good. I've lost some weight.
Guys, for all of you listening, if you follow the GymWits on Instagram, there's a competition going on between Justin and Ryan, and I'm gonna be the judge of the competition. So we're gonna post like every other day or so, like one picture. We're not gonna really tell you. I think the first time we told you who it was, we said like one was Justin, one was Ryan. From now on, it's gonna be a mystery. So it's non-biased, and you just have to vote on, we're asking them a lot of voting today. On which picture looks the healthiest, and I will do the evaluation. How long is this going on for, we think?
I don't know. As long as Justin can maintain his
you guys got to text me your pictures of your food.
Yeah, I will do it. Yeah, I'll do that today.
You got to be by like my client.
Although that gives it away, because if Ryan has a piece of meat, you'll know that it's not me.
Well, one other thing though.
That's true.
Is should I also because for example yesterday I had something bad. I'm forgetting what I had, but I didn't post it because it was bad. So should I still post even if it's a bad even if it's not healthy?
I mean,
No, this is not an every meal challenge.
I don't
Yeah,
think it
it's not
is. I don't think
this
it
is
is.
like
I
every
think
day
the
trying to eat a healthy
intention
meal
is
every day.
is trying to get you to have something healthy. So
Good.
I appreciate the honesty, but like we all know what's kind of bad.
Does
for
it
us.
really matter if they know if it's me or Ryan? Like,
I guess
they're
Yeah.
voting on what's healthier.
Yeah.
Right.
Or they think is healthier. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just guys try not to be biased about it.
Yeah.
Just really be honest. What do you think is healthier or not?
Yeah.
And it's really actually interesting. I was reading some of the comments of like why their reasoning behind it, and
Yeah.
a lot of them did make a lot of sense. I think sometimes it matters what the goal is, as we always know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it'll be. Haven't even created the criteria of how I'm judging it yet,
Yeah.
but we're letting it unfold.
This is a good idea.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, no, it's fun. It's always good to compete, and then that'll make me make better decisions.
Yep.
It's supposed to encourage you.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Now, what if I do something like put together a really healthy meal, but just for the picture, but then don't eat it, and then just like eat something
Then
else?
you're only fooling yourself.
Yeah.
Only fooling yourself for sure.
And
All right.
although I will admit, your meals do not look very appetizing.
I thought they were. I think
don't
Tony
know.
would disagree.
I think that they
probably.
both looked really good.
Yeah.
I do.
Like
I
you thought
do.
that I made this eggplant and
Yeah.
tahini.
But
and,
I don't like eggplant.
Oh well, see that's the whole thing. You're like the type of person that goes on Yelp and like writes a review for a Thai restaurant and is like, well, I don't like Thai food.
I absolutely am not like that at all.
So, like, you criticize the restaurant for the fact that you don't like the type
so
of
that's
food.
that. I'm the exact opposite of that. I'm very self-aware. So of course I'm going to say I don't like it because I don't like eggplant. Yeah, like I'm going to go to like I don't know. Yeah, like a shrimp place, and well, I'm allergic to. I got seriously ill eating the shrimp there.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
mention that I'm allergic to
Yeah,
shrimp.
yeah,
or
it's
something.
I
wouldn't do that.
Well, something that we're all not allergic to. Actually, I'm sure there are people that are allergic to it. In fact, I know someone who's very sensitive to it, and I know you guys don't know what it is yet, unless you read the header of the episode. But
Which we probably did.
This is what happens when you don't have show notes.
Oh yeah. Should we let them
Yeah.
know that this was
Yeah.
a spur of the moment, guys? So I'm sorry if we don't answer all of your questions.
Yeah.
We literally we didn't create content today. Today we went in with an intention to do something.
We're supposed
Something
to have
got
an
screwed
interview
up
today,
and
and it
it's
didn't.
Yeah, I screwed up. We thought we had an interview today. I screwed up. I was like, well, let's just do something. And we had talked about doing this mysterious subject that you don't know about unless you read the title of the episode. And so we thought, okay, we'll wing it. But typically, we're somewhat organized and
Usually,
have
like,
notes.
I might look up like very, very relatively new research because nutrition is a science and it is always changing. However, I think this topic has been around for a while, and I feel confident that I can answer any questions you have without having to go into like big research about it.
Yeah. So I mean, okay. So I guess we'll get to it. It's coffee.
Yes.
So now I'll tell
Coffee.
you my own thing with coffee, because I talked about it, I think on the I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast. It's funny, we talk. I don't know what I've talked to you about on the podcast or when we're just hanging out at this point.
Yeah.
But basically,
Lines are blurred.
I've always been a very big coffee drinker, especially when I started working. My first job was at Starbucks. And prior to working there, I didn't really care for coffee. Then I started drinking massive amounts of coffee because I worked there. I had worked early shifts, and it was while I was in college. So, I could drink about 4 or 5 cups a day. I'd say an average about 3 cups. I definitely would have one first thing in the morning. I definitely would have one be around 11 o'clock. And then I'd have at least one more later on in the day, if not, another 2. So easily 3 to 5 cups of coffee a day. And I definitely noticed, like, the effects were not significant, but I would feel if I didn't have coffee at night or later in the day, I'd feel, I'd be getting caffeine withdrawal like by the next morning. Like if I don't have coffee first thing in the morning, I'd start feeling that. So I had this thing, it's like a cyst or something under my tongue. And so when I went to the doctor wanted me to go through, he said, basically lots of liquids, no alcohol or coffee, and eat candy, because the candy, I guess, would get like the salivary glands going and try to flush out whatever it is, and then decide whether I have to get surgery. So I was like, all right, I don't drink coffee, that's fine. I can drink lots of liquids. If I'm being prescribed to have candy, that's awesome. So that's great. And but I can't not drink coffee. So I was like, I can compromise and do one a day, but that's it. So I've been sticking to that. I've been pretty good about one a day. You know, my coffee rule is kind of like my alcohol rule, which is I'll buy one and then I'll let people give me or buy me. So if it's there, I'll have it. So like when I come here to podcast, often Justin has coffee, so that will be my second coffee of the day. I work at one gym where they have a coffee machine, a latte machine, so I'll make myself a latte. So I'm mostly on 1 cup a day, maybe 2, but it's been pretty good because I actually feel like when I do have my 1 coffee in the morning, it seems to have an effect. I definitely get tired throughout the day, but I'm realizing now if it's the middle of the day and I'm tired, it's because I didn't get sleep. It's not because I'm not drinking coffee. So I'm really trying to force myself to sleep better, and that will give me more energy throughout the day. And drink, even water. I find that the more hydrated I am, the more energy I have. But I'm trying to rely less on coffee and more on sleep and hydration and food. Like I also find if I'm dragging, then I'll just have something with some sugar and or carbs, and that'll give me that extra bit of energy. So I'm finding now that I'm better about, the need for coffee. And so I thought it'd be an interesting subject to talk about, because we hear all kinds of stuff. We hear things, how bad coffee can be, how good it is. So maybe just discuss a little bit.
Just a quick sort of to clear up thing. We're not really talking, coffee is a big part of the discussion, but it's also caffeine, right? Because that's the root of what the issue is. It's based on caffeine. Right?
To an extent, but not completely.
So I know
not
there's a part of coffee that is, but I feel that energy drinks and tea and other things that have caffeine need to be included in this conversation a little bit, as well.
Maybe Tony had that in mind.
Well, we didn't really have anything in mind.
Okay, maybe not.
I'll tell you my history with it. So I actually rarely drink coffee. Occasionally I'll have someone, Ryan comes over on Wednesday here, once in a while before work if I'm feeling it, but I don't drink coffee every day. Sometimes it has a negative impact on me on how I feel. It actually makes my heart pound really fast. It never used to do that. So, and not in sort of like the good way, in an uncomfortable way. So I don't drink much coffee anymore, but I used to drink a ton of caffeine. I would start with a big coffee or iced coffee in the morning. Then in the evening, I would have, depending on what I was doing for work, especially if I had a really tough work schedule, I would have like a Monster drink or a big Red Bull or something like that. And I even got into the habit of doing it before I would work out. I would always have to have a Red Bull or something like that. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact that I had to have an energy drink before I worked out. And it starts to affect your psyche as well. If you go and you don't have it, you're like, oh, now where's my energy to work out? Right. Same thing with work. You get so used to having it during work that if you don't, it messes with you. But now I think I'm pretty good. I'm not drinking much caffeine, and I feel good for it.
Yeah. So I think you both shared something that it related to how you feel.
Absolutely.
You both mentioned that you cut back and you feel better. So whatever makes you feel better, genuinely feeling better, that's what we want to work towards. Coffee in general. I guess we'll stick with the caffeine. Maybe quickly, let me just say, so coffee, decaf or regular, it is acidic for those who have GERD, which is which is like acid reflux. So that would be the only, caffeine itself can cause acid reflux, and then also the coffee bean itself. So, that would be the only thing that I would say we probably need to differentiate between coffee versus energy drinks. Then again, caffeine does cause the GERD, so it's kind of, they're both hand in hand. But regardless, when it comes to some people are more sensitive to caffeine than others. Like you said, it makes your heart kind of beat rapidly.
A friend of mine is really bad.
So if you have cardiovascular issues, and you were told by a doctor to limit your caffeine, please do so. If you're pregnant, your caffeine needs are going to be half of what a normal healthy individual would be. Not that you're not healthy, but you are pregnant, so you need to limit that. So the maximum amount per day of milligrams of caffeine is about 400 milligrams. For a pregnant woman, it's about 200 milligrams, but your doctor, your OBGYN might tell you differently, but that's just generally speaking.
And what is that? How much?
So that's where it becomes a little bit confusing because Ryan, you mentioned working at Starbucks, the caffeine milligrams per cup of Starbucks coffee is higher than, say, Dunkin' Donuts. And and then energy drinks are, might be more. If you notice, though, you both mentioned how you have a cup in the morning and you want a cup in the afternoon. because it's like sugar, right? It brings you up and then back down. But Ryan, I'm really happy that you said you drink water, you eat some sort of carbohydrate. I'm hoping a healthy carbohydrate, like an apple.
Okay. No, you said I could eat gummy bears.
If you're about to work out, you can. Okay. But if it's just to get you, to not utilize that energy, I hope it's a healthy carbohydrate. So that's going to be, the better alternative. I'm a coffee. I love coffee, so I love caffeine. To me, you guys all know we work a lot of hours. We work a lot, and whether it's psychological or not, it helps me be more productive. I think a lot of times it's what you put in your coffee. And of course, if you are having too much of one thing, you're probably not having enough of something else. So, going back to hydration, if your urine is dark in color, probably you're drinking too much coffee, right? We're not drinking enough water. So we always want to replenish that, because coffee itself doesn't actually dehydrate you, but it does make you have to urinate more. So by urinating more, you can become dehydrated. Or if you're drinking that and not drinking water, you can become dehydrated, right? So a lot of it is, if it's affecting your day-to-day and you feel like you're having too much, you probably are having too much.
All right. I'm just wondering if I'm alone here in saying who here really wants a cup of coffee right now.
I just had mine.
Oh, I do.
I already had mine.
Now, what would you say is too much? Like, or is it still like, is 3 cups too much? Is 2 cups too much? Is is there like an upper limit?
So the upper limit, like I was saying, is 400 milligrams per day, which is pretty high.
Yeah.
That's going to be like 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day, depending on the brand and what you would consider a cup, right?
Yeah.
Like some people's cups are very large. So like it's really hard to put it into ounces, but I would say an average cup of coffee would be about 6 ounces of coffee. So 4 or 5 of those, so 24 ounces. So there you go. So like a large Dunkin' Donuts coffee might be your maximum for the day, but yet even though you think you're only having 1 cup, you're having 1 large cup.
So now because I've had this experience, does increasing the amount of coffee kind of dilute the effect of a cup of coffee for you? So if you're
over a period of time, absolutely. Like I know, so for example, so Justin, you mentioned like you've kind of cut back. You don't drink it every day. So if you were to have it, say at 4, like right now it's 4 o'clock, right? So if you were to have a cup of coffee now and you're someone who doesn't have it frequently, you might have issues sleeping at night. Whereas people that drink coffee all day long might be able to fall asleep, and it doesn't matter what time they have a cup of coffee. Yeah. So your sensitivity is going to be different for each person. And what's too much is on a physiological, like basically the effects that the signs and symptoms you're going to get is going to be different from everyone. And then also what are you putting in your coffee is really going to also affect your health. Like if you're putting creamer and sugar and you're drinking 4 or 5 cups a day and you're trying to either manage your weight or manage, your diabetes, those are things that we need to cut back on and look at as added sugars in the diet or added fat in the diet that might be contributing to your health more so than the actual caffeine or coffee itself.
So what are some of the positive health benefits of caffeine, or coffee? We hear a lot about it, and lots more has been coming up about how good it is for you. So, but maybe that enthusiasm should be tempered a little bit for other reasons. But I guess if you can tell me a little bit about what are some of the positive health benefits of it?
Coffee itself, the coffee bean itself, it has a lot of antioxidants, very similar to chocolate, and you'll hear like red wine. So these are foods that provide protective benefits to the body to prevention of chronic illnesses like cancer, heart disease. But at the same time, just because they have those nutritional benefits, that doesn't mean we have to overconsume it. So it is good for us, but like anything, it's a little bit of everything is what is really good for us. We have to find like the magical potion of it all. So the antioxidants in the coffee bean are a benefit. Caffeine itself in small amounts can help with being more alert, especially, listen, if you're driving long hours and you need something to keep you awake, that's going to help, could potentially save your life, right? We know plenty of people drive tired, and that is definitely not something we want to be doing. Just overall being more focused, it can help with your overall focus in, maybe your schoolwork, or, even, we'll get into this later, but maybe on a fitness level. So there is some benefits to that from your mental focus. And then, I don't know, I guess I can't really, I'm sure there's other benefits, but that's like what I can think of.
The way it works to help you focus more or help your mental acuity is that it suppresses whatever chemical or whatever it is in your brain that makes you want to sleep. So it's not like the caffeine itself is making you more focused, but it's suppressing whatever it is that's making you tired. Have you guys heard that before?
Yeah.
I think Ryan, you mentioned that to me before, actually.
Yeah, we're gonna do an episode about how things that work. I guess it would be more of a cheat meal, but like things that don't work the way you think they would work. Like soap. Soap's another thing that doesn't quite work. Like at least the way maybe everybody else in the world knows how it works, and I didn't. But like just like the little things that they kind of work. They basically have the same effect, but just the process is slightly different from what you think.
Oh, and there's one more thing, and this might be TMI, but it helps move bowels.
All right.
So that is a benefit. And when you move your bowels, you decrease waste and you feel better, especially if you have issues. It will help move it.
Nice.
And suppression of appetite, but I don't want to say that because then people might use it. That's where it could be a negative.
Okay.
If you're
good segue.
Yeah. If you're drinking too much coffee with the intention for it to suppress your appetite.
Okay.
And you're skipping meals by drinking it. It's a dependency. It's replacing nutritious items. That's when it can be bad. I went over earlier how it can cause heartburn.
Yeah.
But also it can, if you're sensitive to it, don't use it as an alternative to suppress your appetite.
So I guess going on the negative stuff, like we hear that caffeine's psychoactive, and it's a drug. So and I guess it's the biggest selling drug in the U.S. or something like that. But it obviously is legal, and people do develop dependencies and become addicted. And I've dealt with withdrawal from caffeine. So, is that potentially a negative side effect of it? The addictiveness
I think
of caffeine?
anything that you can't go without.
Yeah.
It's usually there's something there that needs to be done or said. You should be able to go a day without something and be okay with that.
Yeah.
Anything that you can't go a day without and it makes you really, like, for example, and not to segue, but we could do we are 150% addicted to our phones. So if there's a day where I forget my phone at home, and I literally get anxiety. It might be because I run my business on it.
Phone anxiety,
but it's
phone separation anxiety.
It's a legitimate thing, and I fully admit it. And that's to show that it's and I'm getting better at it. It's something that I'm working on. But I'll fully admit that I am addicted to my phone. And I think that the same thing would go with coffee. If I didn't have a cup of coffee, I would get through the day. To be honest, I think I'd be fine, but I would be thinking about it all day long. And like you were saying, Justin, I might just think that my day is worse because I didn't have it, but really nothing changed other than I thought my day was worse because I didn't have it.
It happens.
But yeah, so that would probably be a negative about it.
So I guess going on, obviously we're a fitness podcast. Does coffee or caffeine have any benefits for people with exercise? Like, is it good to take it before you work out? What can you tell us about that?
Well, so I guess so here's what I think about that. We know that caffeine can cause dehydration if you're not hydrating properly. So that it could be a danger, and dehydration can lead to injury, which then can, put you out and all that stuff. But at the same time, I think that sometimes the benefits of an exercise regimen that you can stick to, and if you need a little cup of coffee to get you to do it, are going to outweigh it if you just didn't exercise at all because you didn't have the coffee to push you to get there. Yeah. Are there supplements out there that are way too strong, that have way too many milligrams of caffeine that people are taking for their pre-workouts to get them started? 150%. And those are not something that I'm saying yes to. But, you know, a little cup of coffee, maybe tea, you know, something that is going to get you motivated to do it. I definitely think that it is worth it. I mean, I stick to an exercise program because of that. I think that whether it's psychological or not, it gets me up every morning at 5 a.m. and I do my workout.
Yeah, I definitely, and it's frustrating. We'll get a little bit into my, somewhat related to my Ask the Dietitian question, but I used to have coffee as my pre-workout thing, and I definitely felt a difference having the caffeine. You just felt more alert, felt a little more energy, more awake. My enthusiasm for the workout was a little bit greater. So that's been a little bit of an adjustment that I don't have.
Perceived exertion, there are studies on that.
Yeah.
There are studies that show that someone who has a little bit of caffeine before a workout, their perceived exertion, meaning they're not looking at the workout as more difficult, put more into the workout and therefore get more out of it.
Okay, yeah.
So that part is studies have shown that.
Yeah.
The other downside, though, is I will say is the caffeine that's way too strong.
Yeah.
You could be too enthusiastic with your workout, which causes soreness.
Yeah.
You know, you putting in so much effort that you could injure yourself or just be sore for like 4 days after, where then you don't work out after that and you're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where always you have to find that balance for you, just the balance for you.
Yeah, one thing I have read that was that caffeine helps with post-exercise soreness. So actually, almost counter to what you're just saying, but obviously, if you're not doing it at an extreme level, that there is some correlation between caffeine intake and post-exercise soreness, and kind of avoiding that or limiting the amount of soreness.
Drinking it after?
That is a good question. I forget. I read that a long time ago. I believe. You know, I don't know. I'm not sure if it was before or after, but there was a correlation between the caffeine and I'm gonna look up the study and try to find it. If I find it, I'll put it up in the show notes. But this is at least like 8-10 years ago.
Yeah, well, anything out after 5 years is outdated. So for those who are listening who like to bring research up to the table and talk about things, make sure that where you're getting your research from is 5 years or
why would that
earlier.
be considered outdated?
After 5 years?
Yeah.
That what I've been taught as a registered dietitian in our scope of practice is we look for scientific evidence based off of the past 5 years, because our food's always changing, science is always changing, and you know there's some things that are going to be kind of I guess fair game, like we know water's good for us type of thing, but there's a lot of other things that are relatively new and developing.
Interesting. Yeah,
It doesn't mean that something that is 10 years old, you can't be accurate.
Well, because I feel like with science, you build on
another 5 years
with
ago.
science, you build on things from like hundreds and thousands of years. I feel like I would say maybe if there's new science that contradicts things that are older, that might make a difference. But I would find it strange that you would discount something.
Not discount it, but it doesn't weigh as heavy. You can use it to help kind of make a case, but you can't make a case fully on science that's 5 years plus outdated.
Huh. I gotta
what
look into that. I don't buy that.
Really? That's
yeah, because like I mean, it just if you think about like I said, I think it would be one thing if you have science that's 5-10 years old, and there's something that there's something new that kind of contradicts it or sheds some new light on it. Obviously, you would want to go with that. But I would think that just because something's old, if the study was done well, if it's peer reviewed and if it's accepted science, I can't see how you would how it can't be accepted. You know what I mean? Like
I mean, I guess I could see that if it's something like for this topic, I could see it being a little bit outdated and it'd be fine because coffee and caffeine really haven't changed much over the years. But I think just the way of life, the quality of our food, depending on the topic, it can play a huge role in the year it was done.
What about Einstein's theories? We have to wait to see if those things become outdated. That's way older than 5 years old. Maybe gravity doesn't exist.
Well, so you can. There's a difference between a theory though and then scientific evidence.
Yes.
Well,
There's
so,
two different things.
I know. I'm just.
I mean, I think what happens is
being
you
stupid.
and I'm gonna butcher this, but like you have you have an idea and you test it, and then you get a result, and then you test it, and over time it becomes, I forget the terminology, but like kind of
It's
accepted
scientific
scientists.
method,
Right.
Exactly. So I just feel like, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but I was having a hard time with the 5-year thing now. But I just found this study. It was 2007, and it was before. So it was
So that's
caffeine before
outdated.
the workout. That's not. I disagree. I think
2018.
But again, Einstein's theories have yet to be.
It's a valid point.
They're still confirming his. They're like for example, just this year, probably the biggest science story of the year was the detection of gravitational waves, which Einstein predicted like 100 years ago. So that's 100 years old, and those ideas are still being confirmed now. So I just can't. I can't buy it. I can't buy that things are outdated unless you have new science that contradicts the idea.
I think that we aren't coming up with necessarily proven in the diet realm, in the nutrition realm, or even the fitness realm, hardened facts, because we know that people react differently. Different strokes for different folks, right? Some people will react to different nutritional aspects differently than others. So it's very hard to peg something down as a fact by like saying, oh, this food
Well, that's
is
science. You can't.
right,
Yeah.
because so initially, just from the beginning, you can't peg it down as a fact. And I think that a lot of the stuff that Tony is referring to are things that may not necessarily have been initially proven anyway.
I found another study, 2013. That also confirms it.
Okay,
that
that's valid.
beneficial.
So wait, so what is it? No, just I'm interested. What is the study about?
It's called the effect of caffeine ingestion on delayed onset delayed onset muscle soreness, by Hurley C.F. et al. In the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, which I should have that copy somewhere at home because I can't find the full. It won't show the full study, but I subscribe to that, so I should find it. But it was 2013, and I'm not going to go through the whole study, but basically that it showed some benefits on performance as well as delayed onset muscle soreness.
So
That's very
Still,
interesting.
I'm
trying to.
I'd be interested if you find the explanation for the 5-year rule would be really.
No, I am. I'm trying to find it right now. I'm going on. So registered dietitians, we're under the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and we go over. Keep talking. I'm researching.
I think that some of it, once again, is context based, especially.
It is definitely, yeah. I mean, there's certain things that are pretty obvious.
When if you're proving that, or if you're proving that a new element exists and you're able to discover it exists, right? Unless you can disprove that it exists somehow, but it exists. It's right. But with nutrition, with food, right? So much of it we feel comes out of, in industry. So say the low carb fad, right, which might have been accepted in some circles as science, and there might even have been studies that said, oh, this is a healthy way, or this is a good long-term goal, a good long-term approach has since been
and our way of
debunked.
life, and also our way of life is different. Yeah. So the way the food affects us is going to be like thinking about. So here's a really good example. Older models of like our carbohydrate distribution, where I think, to be honest, I don't think they're and yes, the guidelines are getting updated every year and all that, but considering the fact that most people aren't as active as they're supposed to be, I think they need to change the amount of carbohydrates that our food comes from to compensate for that, but they haven't yet. So if you look at older models, like the carbohydrate, you remember the food pyramid, the grains were all on the bottom, and they told you to have like 6 to 11 servings of grains. If anyone did that and they're not as active as they're supposed to be, which a majority of the Americans aren't, they would probably gain weight or get diabetes or something like that.
Sure. And of course, there's also guidelines for exercise and activity.
Right, and it's whether they comply or not.
But none of that is scientific fact. The food pyramid is not scientific fact. It was guidelines that was put out by whatever.
But based off of research, they're not just put out there. It's based off of research.
Yes, it is based off of research, but it's not. It's not fact though. It's a guideline.
Right, exactly. It's a guideline, and that's why people need to meet with RDs for individualized care.
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
Interesting tangent.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say one thing.
All right, I'm gonna get back to you on this because
okay,
I'm trying to research on my phone and it's really difficult.
That's fine. So we'll touch on it next week.
I'm sure I have a position paper by the
rule.
academy.
We're meeting up next week, so we'll be able to figure it out, and we could discuss the 5-year rule. What were you gonna say, Justin? Before we get back to our
I was going to bring it back to fitness. Okay. Back to working out. So the negative for me was that it became very hard to work out if I didn't have caffeine, right? And I don't know if it was physical or mental, and probably both. Yeah. Right? Because you get so used to doing something, it's hard to continue doing it if you don't have your incentive or your motivation there. If the motivation for me was caffeine and also helping me physically, then it became an issue. Now, there was another study that I've read, and I don't know if there's any basis for this, or even if the study was peer reviewed. Actually, it had mentioned, and I got to find this one too, is that caffeine actually doesn't help with endurance. If you are a endurance athlete, that caffeine will negatively impact. So after a certain while, maybe the theory is that the caffeine wears off and then you crash a little bit more, so you actually have less sustained energy when you drink caffeine. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I have read that. I've heard that from a couple different sources. Tony, have you heard that at all?
I actually haven't. Like I said earlier, I've read more studies based off of perceived exertion. And I could probably relate to this with my, so studies-wise, no. From a personal perspective, I think that when I had my long runs, when I was training for the half, I needed that cup of coffee psychologically. However, it really did interrupt the fact that I had to urinate in between that for TMI. But so that part got in the way of my run. But I think, honestly, I think it's all about what the mind believes, the mind achieves. So whatever gets you going.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, study-wise, I don't know. But once again, this was like an on-the-fly episode, so I should look into it.
I'm sure.
And I will.
Will realize that this is on the fly.
Yes, I think so.
So a couple more questions. So I've heard there's been the craze of like the bulletproof coffee and butter in your coffee. I've read that there's no effect, but no benefit. Is that true? Like, what does it help to like put some butter in your coffee or oil or whatever?
Yeah. So some people do butter, some people do coconut oil, and then the belief is that it'll have more sustained energy. They usually do it on a fast, so it's something that they'll have, and it'll give sustained energy. To be honest, I've spoken with some RDs about it, and they claim to have read studies. I haven't read any studies about it. Regardless, to be honest, I think the answer for that is that fat, meaning butter or coconut oil, whatever you're putting in your coffee, is more calorically dense, and so therefore it has more energy naturally. Yeah. So therefore it's going to provide prolonged energy. Yeah. But I think we talked about that on the intermittent fasting episode, how that may be effective, but if it's replacing nutrient-dense foods, like if you're having that instead of, some berries and yogurt and granola and Cheerios or oatmeal or eggs with vegetables, if it's replacing some of those more nutritious foods, then it might not be a great solution for whatever it is you're trying to achieve.
So now, what about the little energy shots that don't have a ton of caffeine, but it's very concentrated? Right? Could there be potentially any negatives, or maybe that's a good way to do it? Just drink your little shot, right? Have energy. Now I know they put a lot of other stuff in those shots. Which
it depends. Yeah,
That idea of the concentration of coffee or caffeine.
It all goes back to the amount.
Yeah.
Whether it's concentrated or diluted, it's still the milligrams.
They all claim. A lot of them claim that it's got about as much caffeine as 1 cup of coffee.
Right. That's a personal preference. Right. I also think that there's also another benefit that we didn't talk about. Like, the art of drinking coffee. I know a lot of people can connect to that. The smell,
Sure.
The way it makes them feel, the way it kind of they start their day, that holding it in their hands, the warmness, those things that, I think some people drink coffee for that reason, whereas other people might just drink it, like you said, just to get it over with, drink it, do your workout,
like a ritual.
Go through it, but I think the taste of it matters as well. Yeah.
Also, so
I'll tell you one coffee that I didn't think tasted all that great.
What?
And that was the cat poo.
Okay,
coffee.
well, wait. I was
What?
We'll get to the cat poo coffee in a little while.
Well, yeah. Well, first thing I'm going to say, I'm going to push back on Justin. I've read a lot of conflicting information, but I've read more about caffeine improving running performance and just endurance athletes, and I've read against it. So I was going to say, like, I don't buy that yet. Like, there's conflicting information out there, but I wouldn't. I would say it's one of the things that it's either up in the air or it's more along the lines of it improves performance, because I've read a lot about it proving important. So I just wanted to say that. So that we don't, if our listener does drink coffee, like, oh crap, Chef Sonic said not to drink coffee. No, I
didn't say that. I just said that I had heard that.
But
I never.
I guess one other question on coffee, and then we can talk about the cat poo coffee. I actually have a question
What is
that we'll relate to.
cat poo coffee? I don't know.
So, my one question is: are there any alternatives for people who can't drink coffee? What alternatives are there for them as far as getting energy? Maybe if they need a boost, whether it's for an workout.
Can't have caffeine.
Yeah. They can't have caffeine. Or caffeine and coffee, I guess.
Well, so instead of like coffee, if you want, like tea has caffeine as well. Actually, if you leave the tea bag into the water, you'll actually probably get more caffeine than if you had a cup of coffee.
Okay.
So if you're trying to have less caffeine, but you do still want caffeine, maybe let the tea bag steep for about 3 to 5 minutes and then remove it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So you still get a little bit of caffeine that way, but not without overdoing it. If you're looking for alternative energy sources, your healthy like fruit is one of the best ways to get energy right away.
What about what's it called? Cocaine.
What do you think, Justin?
All right, let's not.
Oh, God.
Let's go.
Last night on my live video, I'm doing these live videos on my Tips with Tony page on Facebook and Instagram. And last night's topic was 5 things you can do non-diet and non-exercise related to improve your health. And one of them I had to say was no drugs. You would think it's obvious, but it's not so obvious to some. So no, not cocaine, unless you want liver damage.
Although I have heard of I guess, where was it, in Colombia, about some of the Native Americans who would chew the little cocoa leaf, and it would provide them energy for hours. But of course, that wasn't a refined, made in a lab drug that's meant for.
We're running a little late, so let's
sell.
Don't do drugs, people.
Let's shift away. I think we're probably losing people.
Justin. Leave it to Justin to go off too.
All right, so a couple questions. A quick question. So I'll ask you, what's your favorite coffee if you have one, and then I'll explain what the cat poop coffee is.
What do you mean by what my
do you have any? Is there any particular kind of coffee that you have that's a favorite?
Well, so recently I've been starting to drink my coffee black.
Okay.
So I like most coffee that's either flavored but naturally flavored, not with a sweetener, like a hazelnut flavor. Okay. But I always put ground cinnamon in it.
Okay, cool.
Instead of sugar or milk or anything like that.
What are you, Justin? Favorite coffee?
It's tough to say. I've been getting a bunch of nice boutique coffees recently, but I find that, especially because I'm sensitive, that I can't really drink strong coffee. I used to love drinking Spanish coffees, but I can't do that anymore. Yeah,
those are good. Like Cafe Bustelo.
Yeah, Bustelo's great, but I can't do it anymore. So I don't know. I've kind of gone drinking weak American coffee. Although you know what, sometimes when I'm in Astoria, if I go to one of the bakeries, I'll get one of the Turkish coffees. Yeah, I do like I can't front. I do like the
when
Turkish
you do
coffees.
the French press, it's good.
Yeah, I do like the French press.
Yeah, the French press and the Turkish are the kind of, if you want to get, I think you want to get the most flavor. But I'm definitely far from a coffee snob, so don't want to sound. But
what do you like?
Mine is the Kona coffee, which is a Hawaiian brand. It's
oh my gosh, I had that one.
It's really expensive.
Yes, and one time it went on sale, and I went back to get it, and I was like, "Oh, you got me."
It's like made in a certain area of Kona, Hawaii. That it like the ground is such that like it has to be picked by hand, I think, so they can't get the machines there. So so it's really hard to pick. So it's really expensive, but it's like the best coffee. It's really good. My favorite, though, actually, like I love Kona coffee just as a coffee. I can drink that black. I typically I like a little milk and sugar, but I can but black is fine too. But Kona is really good. But also then there's a Kona macadamia nut.
Yes, that's the one that I had.
That's probably my favorite flavor of coffee ever. Like nothing can compete with that. I have had, like, I usually drink hazelnut coffee. Now the cat poop coffee. So there's this animal. I forget where. God, I forget what country it is. But it's like it's called Thailand. No, it's not Thailand. I think it might be. I know it's Southeast Asia, but I don't know. I forget which country. But it's like a civet, like a cat-like mammal that eats the cherries and then poops out the coffee beans. And then somehow they figured out that if you take those pooped out coffee beans and clean it up and roast it, it makes the best coffee. Now, Justin, I know you've tried
digestive juice.
I've tried it. Something like they say something, maybe the enzymes in the stomach do something. So now something about the process though makes for the best coffee. Now the one thing I'll say, because Justin's tried it, because I had it, to be fair, is I made it. And so for a coffee like that, like you need to have it made like the right way, and I don't know that I can. I made it. You guys can't see my face right now, but so I would reserve judgment until you actually go to a real place that can actually make it properly. But it's super expensive. It's also the most expensive coffee by far in the world. Like my wife got it for me as a gift, and I was like, "You're insane. Why would you get this? It's so expensive." I mean, she's not insane. She's really great. But like, why would you spend that much money on coffee? But it was good. I liked it. I mean, it's somebody again, I'm not a snob. Like I can drink the cheap coffee on the corner. I could drink cat poop coffee. I don't care. But
I'll say this.
I'll say it was really
the
good.
Best cat poop coffee I've ever had.
All right. Well, I had it asked the dietitian, but we're over.
Yeah, and I did want to just mention one thing for those who do have heartburn and we're told to keep the acid down. Yeah. There are 2 coffees I could recommend for those people. One of them is, and it's a little bit more expensive, but it has 70% less acid than your traditional coffee. It's called Pure Roast. Mm-hmm. And then the other one is the Illy, ILLY.
Oh, okay.
So the ILLY Illy coffee or the Pure Roast coffee, PUR, PU Roast. Those are going to be 2 options that you might be able to have and not find that you get the heartburn from.
I heard that espresso has less acid, but then I drank it and I had crazy heartburn. So
I wonder,
it's more concentrated. Though.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's all about like how. So the Illy coffee technically is an espresso, but you can make it into a coffee by adding more water.
Yeah, like with espresso, you can just make it like regular. Cool. All right. Well, I guess I'll have to ask my ask the dietitian question.
And
next
we have
week.
Another ask the dietitian anyway, so that I wanted to get more information about before I addressed it. Yes.
All right. Cool. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed us winging it. As usual, get all of our stuff at TheGymWits.com. Our information, again, go to survey.lipson.com. Fill out the survey. Help us out. Support us. It's really easy. Takes 2 minutes.
Really appreciate it.
Helps us. I'm not going to say it helps us do this podcast for free because we'd be doing this podcast for free anyway. So I know people like to say that, but no, we'd be doing it for free anyway.
But if we had access to certain resources, videos and other types of cool things, and
if we were getting paid, we would do this more often. How about that?
I don't know if that's is that a good thing or
guys more content.
All right, so yeah. All right, so I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, aka Chef Sonic, reminding you that truth does not sell.
Truth does not smell. No, keep it in. Don't cut it out.
Cat poop.
No, leave it.
I will.
He was thinking of the cat poop. I can't. Okay. I'm Tony Mariucci. aka Tipsy Tony, a registered dietitian.
And we are the GymWits.